Welcome back to Switch Direct with a review of Trials of Mana. Should you buy it, wait for a sale, or avoid it entirely? Well, we'll be answering that in addition to doing a deep dive into the core mechanics, controls, graphics, story, value, and give it a final score, and let you know if you should buy, wait for a sale, or avoid it. So stick around to see, is Trials of Mana worth the buy? Trials of Mana is an action RPG remake of the originally titled Seiken Densetsu 3, which was the third in a series of Mana games, the first being Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game Boy, and the second being Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. The remake has the game fully redone with new 3D graphics, fully voiced dialogue, and a full new chapter that adds about 6 hours to the story at the end, and allows for your characters to reach the 4th class, which is all new class that wasn't before in the game. The game has you first choose your main character and 2 companions, which you will get to control throughout the game. The main character decides some of the story elements you'll see, but for the most part, you'll see the core story regardless of character. Choosing your 3 characters can be tough, as well as what upgrade paths to go, as you don't have a ton of information on the full effect this will have on your playthrough, until you've actually done it. This gave me some serious FOMO, and we had to check into each character and restart multiple times before we settled on our final party. If you do the same, what you will find out is there is one main healer, Charlotte, the child sprite, who is also super annoying to listen to.
Oh, I thought it was Agana, but you saved me! I'm Charlotte. I'm a famous beauty from Wendell.
You'll also find out how Kevin, who can transform into a werewolf, is a powerhouse that can pretty much solo the game, as well as can choose support healing options in the form of saber buffs that give health on hit. Combined with Duran, who is another good melee character, with a choice if you go light side to get a heal. Making a team of these 3 will probably be your strongest team you can make, but before you just go down that route, let me say, the biggest problem with this game is that it's too easy, even on the hardest difficulty. So it doesn't quite matter as much what you choose as your party members, as you will be able to beat all the content regardless. I personally went with a no healer setup, just to see if it was doable as items only. And what I found was it totally was. I used Hawkeye as my main character, with light side class upgrades. He was a decent melee character, with party-wide passive stat boosts. Then Reese, who I also upgraded the light path, with more party-wide passive stat boosts. And then finally Angela, who I ended up controlling directly the most during my playthrough, due to wanting more control over mana regain abilities and targeting spellcasting. Angela, I also upgraded the light path as it had more mana cost reductions and big area of effect spells. With this setup, I was able to complete all the content, including the secret final hidden boss, with only 1 death on a boss and 1 really sloppy boss that I killed with just Angela when I ran out of healing items. I'd recommend getting stocked up on Poto oils in the black market area as well, which is the only place you can buy them. And since you don't have a healer, these are the only items that are going to give you a party-wide heal. This actually worked pretty well as a team build, since I used Angela to destroy all the baddies, clearing them away with ease, while Hawkeye and Reese just soaked up damage and gave party buffs. It really came through in the end after I got to class 3, and Angela could wipe out entire groups of enemies in a single shot. The light and dark paths I've been talking about are the class changes you'll get at level 18, 38, and post-main game. They also caused me to spend a lot of time fretting about thinking if I was doing the right one or not. And while I think it worked out for me, this is another negative. They don't give you enough information during your decision, and you're best off saving before, choosing the classes, seeing what abilities you get fully, then deciding with all the loading screens and menus. This takes a bit of time. I would have liked it if it were easier to switch between them. Your only way to change a class, if you don't like it, is endgame with an item, which comes a bit too late, since once you get it, you'll have to refine your class 3 items, which only appear as a chance once you are class 2, and you'll have to find new weapons and armor, which are class specific. This made it feel like you're really stuck in the choice early on. Also, class outfits can look really cool and different, so if you have a specific one in mind, be aware that if you choose light side for your class 2 option, then your class 4 option is light side only. Unless you redo your class, then reacquire the class 3 items, which are random, and reacquire gear, which at the end game, all the best gear is randomly acquired through seeds, so it's a big pain. Trials of Mana will have you controlling your main character in towns, but once you are out in the world, you will get to switch between each of the 3 characters you choose at any time to fight with. In combat, you'll be attacking, dodging, and using special abilities. The attacks are broken down into normal quick attacks, power attack, which you can use at the end of a chain of normal attacks for combos, and charge attacks, which you hold down your attack to charge up, most useful against mobs with guards up, to break their guard. This is a real strength of the game. It's fluid, dynamic, and a joy to play. Boss fights in particular will have you paying fully attention to attacks so that you can dodge them, as well as key moments where you need to focus fire on specific targets to avoid a bigger attack or to draw out a weakness. With the change to 3D, in addition to better graphics, there's now jumping as well, and they use it pretty well. It will be necessary to finding all the hidden items in addition to attacking some flying foes. It also felt good to be able to just jump and dodge around all over the place. Another major change is you'll get markers at all times for where you need to go next. This can be a good or a bad thing. On the one side, you'll never be wondering where you need to go next, especially when you're in the town and you have to talk to several random people before continuing, or when coming back to the game after a while. On the other side, it discourages exploration and looking at your environment, as well as it makes it so you don't need to pay attention to the story or what people say, as you can just follow the magic marker all the way through. However, they did add a number of collectible items, including little cactuses, that you'll really want to unlock, which was a nice way of getting you to actually explore each of the environments. We really appreciate that, as it balances out the negative aspect of this change. So overall, we appreciate it despite its drawbacks. Difficulty, as we said earlier, is overall a lot easier, but the main reasons why it's easier is because of increased control. Damage values didn't seem to change a bunch between the original and remake. However, now you can see where a special attack is going and dodge away from it, whereas in the original, when a mob casts a special move, the person targeted would lose control for the animation and it would always hit. So it also was frustrating to play at times because you'd get stun locked by a series of enemy moves. Now, however, you don't have that, so while it seems that they do more attacks, you just move away from them, which you should be able to relatively easily. Though you can expect your allies to get hit far too often from them. They're not the best at dodging. Additionally, there are lots of healing pots you'll find as you dive into dungeons, giving you spot healing. So you're less likely to run out of supplies, and finally, they put more conveniently located full health and magic point save statues in the dungeons, often at the beginning and right before a boss battle. So you're rarely walking to a boss without anything less than full health and magic. Whereas in the original, you would have maybe your save point at the beginning of the dungeon, and you wouldn't have one right before the boss fight. So you'd have a slow loss of health over time, and you wouldn't go in with everything you needed, and you also wouldn't have a save right before the boss as well. These changes, while giving more quality of life and more engaging action, also have the effect of making it a bit too easy, and they could have standed to tune up the difficulty accordingly. Gameplay gets a 9 out of 10. The game is a lot of fun to play, but could have used a bit more difficulty to make your choices of characters and paths a bit more meaningful. Controls for Trials of Mana were responsive and worked well with both handheld and the Pro Controller. They also added some quality of life differences to the remake, such as shopkeeping, you get an easy comparisons for your party members without switching who is the main, and menus all work much faster and easier, as well as shortcuts to your favorite moves. You won't spend much time thinking about the controls because they work so well, but when you do a side-by-side comparison of the original, you can see how they fix some of the more sluggish aspects of the game, and you can really appreciate it. Only minor complaint is running should have been a toggle on permanently instead of having to return it on back every time you get going. But was so minor it didn't really detract from the experience. So controls get 10 out of 10. Graphics are a shining part of Trials of Mana Remake. They really look vibrant and beautiful, the outfits and skills all pop. They really kept faithful to the original art style the game had, and as such will stay good looking for many years to come. It misses a bit on the over-exaggeration in some of the animations in the original sprite work, but overall looks way better. They do reuse some NPC models a bit too much, such as all the vendor NPCs are the same dancing guy, but this is also a style choice to match the original game too, so we won't knock it too much, especially since the majority of the game you aren't spending talking to vendors. Graphics get 10 out of 10. The story of Trials of Mana is a typical save the world from evil. Common from this era of JRPG it came from. There is a partial twist in the main character decision, as this affects who your nemesis is and who the final boss is, giving a bigger connection for your character choice to the final bad guys. But you'll go to all the same major places. Basics of the story is that there are 3 different groups of bad people manipulating major nations into starting wars, so that they can get a hold of the mana stones and control mana. Depending on your main character, determines who of these 3 groups of baddies are your nemesis that you need to deal with. You and your companions set out to restore mana, while these evil forces try and take over and want to conquer the world. As you go, you'll find a fairy who deems you worthy to help restore mana and save the world, and it will guide you on your way to do so. The story was relatively lighthearted and fun to watch, and it kept you going from one place to another. The addition of fully voiced dialogue was great, and the voice actors did an amazing job for the most part. We did find that Charlotte was a bit annoying to listen to, hence why we opted out of using her in our party. There are no major shock or awe moments, but was fun to see the story play out. The new chapter added to the end of the story doesn't do much to push the narrative further. While it was fun to play, giving you a chance to upgrade your characters to a 4th class, and then use them in a huge final dungeon, it didn't add depth to the story and was just another generic baddie that needed to be beaten back. Story gets an 8 out of 10. Trials of Mana goes for a slightly less than full AAA price at a cost of $49.99. It will net you about 35 hours of gameplay for one go-through. There's also a New Game Plus, but the New Game Plus doesn't increase difficulty of monsters, so you'll be at level 70-ish character fighting level 1 mobs, and it will be completely trivial experience, as you just one-shot everything. It would have been nice if they scaled up with you for this, so you could play with endgame gear, levels, abilities through the whole story again. But as it was implemented, the only reason I see to do New Game Plus is if you want to breeze through the game with a different main character to see alternative story moments quicker. Otherwise, the game does offer replayability by starting another regular new game and choosing different set of characters or the same characters and going down different class upgrade paths. That will change up how you play the game quite a bit. So there is a lot of extra content you can get out of this after beating it once. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the co-op that the original had, which would have been a welcome addition and would have added a lot more hours of gameplay. Value gets an 8 out of 10. Trials of Mana was a great ride and a fun experience that never felt grindy or boring. It could have used some more challenge, but overall was well worth the playthrough, and we look forward to playing again with the characters we hadn't tried yet. With so many things better in this remake over the original, we believe this to be the definitive version of Trials of Mana. Overall, it gets a 9 out of 10 and a buy recommendation. If you like action RPGs and want a fun JRPG story with great graphics, don't mind the easier difficulties, this is an awesome buy, and you should go out and get it immediately. We'll be showcasing all the bosses from our run with the Healerless Party on hard soon, so be sure to check that out when it's uploaded. Let us know what you thought of Trials of Mana in the comments, and what is your favorite RPG on the Switch. If you like this content and would like to see more like it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, and we'll catch you later.